is Rafi Guzon, and you are tuned in to Nothing But That Sports Talk. Yeah, not a good loss for the Los Angeles Chargers. Welcome to this episode of Nothing But That Sports Talk. I'm Rafiq Luzong, and join me for the very first time. She's a Chargers fan. She even was a professional dancer for the Chargers. Not to mention, she does some TV reporting, and yeah, you can find her on Twitch, live streaming a lot of NFL games. Bridget Case, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're always excited to have any content creators come in to talk all things in sports. And I honestly, from what I've seen, you have a large sports background. To start off, but before we get to all things Chargers, let's start off with getting to know your background a little bit about how we got started and why you got into sports.
Yeah, I always wanted to work in sports since I was a young kid. Grew up a huge football fan. That was just kind of part of my family culture. Yeah, I loved writing. I always knew I wanted to be a journalist. I didn't know if that meant in the broadcast TV side or the newspaper print side. And ultimately, like I did go the broadcast route. So it was something that like I just always knew I wanted to do. And spent my time at the University of Oregon, studied journalism there, and was a cheerleader at Oregon during those 4 years where Chip Kelly was taking the team to BCS bowl game after bowl game, cheered in the 2011 national championship against Auburn. And then I cheered for the Chargers when they were still in San Diego, and moved on to the regular journalism world when I was done with cheering, and made a couple stops in TV, worked for a couple NBC and CBS stations as a sports anchor and reporter. And then ultimately a couple years ago decided to go out on my own, test the podcasting world, and found myself in like a love affair with content creation and live content. And so now I'm a host for several different platforms, and work with Twitch and Amazon, and I have my own Twitch live stream, work with FanDuel now, and ultimately create content on the wide world of the internet. And in my free time, I also dance as a sloth. So I've got lots of different random things. I'm a huge mental health advocate, all about using social media for good.
Exactly. And yeah, you've done a pretty good job with those entertaining Twitch streams.
Thank you.
And yes, that was me, Rafizi X, which I eventually changed the name because I feel like I wanted to put some more professionalism in my Twitch. And yeah, you done some pretty good stuff.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you.
Yeah, but get back to like just like your days being a cheerleader, a dancer at the University of Oregon. Like, why don't you reflect like some of the times where some of the pros and cons of being a cheerleader?
Pros were just what you can imagine, so much exposure, being at a huge university with all of your friends, the college football atmosphere. There's nothing like it, especially in a Power Five school, especially a stadium like Autzen Stadium, right? So there are so many perks being an ambassador for the university, getting to continue my love of dance. And it was always something that I wanted to do at the collegiate level. I trained for decades as a competitive dancer. So it was something I always just wanted to take to the next level. Of course, you can imagine some of the cons can be what any athlete obviously can experience, with team dynamics and issues with coaches, but definitely within the cheer and dance world, even the gymnastics world as well. There's a lot of body image issues, definitely some eating disorders that men and women face. So I think there's a lot of different things, including just the stereotypical, um actually just more in general, the stereotypes that dancers and cheerleaders face, that can be very frustrating because a lot of my teammates were very, very smart, and I think we all had really strong GPAs, and there's just a lot of stereotypes I think that men and women in that world face. And it's some of the challenges that you come across in the collegiate cheer and dance world, I think, make you stronger for the real world. Especially like if people don't take you seriously, don't take your sport seriously, which I think, again, like I think it can be such an advantage because you're prepared for anything once you're thrown out into the world after college.
Yeah, I could tell. I mean, seeing that you actually being able to do your part to bring engagement into the Oregon sports is is something to behold. And while when we continue talking about your dancing career, like what is some constructive criticism that you take and how you built off of that especially during your whole overall career from your days at Oregon to the San Diego Chargers, which is now the Los Angeles Chargers?
Yeah, I think two things. One, not being taken seriously as a human being, because there is that stereotype with college and professional cheerleaders and dancers that we're not all that smart or don't know about football. That's my favorite one. Um, but or like we're just in it for our looks or something like that. Like that you just make a team because of looks, which is just so ridiculous. People don't understand all that goes into behind the appearance, right? And mainly I hated I hated people not taking dancers and cheerleaders seriously as athletes. And I think there's a lot more out there now, a lot more content where people are starting to understand the athleticism that goes behind being a college and professional cheerleader dancer. And it's something that, again, I think fighting those stigmas of, oh, you're not real athletes, like it's just bullshit, excuse my language. But because I think it's one of those things where you have to make things look good on the outside. So just because something looks easy doesn't mean it is. And there's so much training. I mean, I grew up training, 5 to 10 hours a day. It was crazy, like honestly, on a much wilder schedule than most of my other friends in different sports. So I think just being taken seriously as athletes, and again, when people do doubt you and look at you a certain way and expect that you're going to be something, and then get to know you and realize you're so much more than that. Um, Again, I think it comes into like the strengths that you develop while fighting those stereotypes and stigmas.
Exactly. I mean, when you do it like in the collegiate level, of course you're gonna end up running into those challenges of balancing out how to practice your dance routine at the same time balancing out academic success and get whatever
Yep.
media you've done during your time in college, which led up to those broadcasting opportunities. And we'll see to a question like, how have you managed to balance out perfecting your craft in dancing, academic success, and be a success?
Uh oh man, yeah, balancing academics, that was for sure a hard one. I definitely had to put um I had to put obviously like my sport first for quite a while because that was the priority. So all the time I was always trying to figure out, okay, these are life skills that I can apply once I do become a journalist. And again, I was one of those rare people who always knew what I wanted to do. But the hardest thing was just the transition going from life as an NFL cheerleader straight into being a broadcast journalist. When I made that leap, that was really tough. And I'd already done some internships, was a production assistant, and worked my way up to being a reporter. But I think letting go of that identity that served me for so long, that was who I was for so long, was the hardest part. That was the hardest thing. I mean, I still feel like a chunk of me is missing because I'm not, out at a competition or out on the football field or whatever it may be. It's one of those things that it never leaves you, but you fill it with something new. And so once I found my love and passion for journalism, I knew I was going to be okay. It was definitely a difficult transition. But all of the things that any like athlete or anybody who just trains in something for a really long time, you learn all of these skills that are applicable not only for life in general, but your continued career path.
That's a very interesting point. And before we continue, like the journalism side, let's continue talking about the whole landscape of dancing. Like, from your own perspective, why you think that dancing is very important for the collegiate and major sports teams, especially in California?
Yeah, I think besides what the team does for us in itself, I think it's so important to have spirit, like bring like the spirit atmosphere is so crucial to college football. Imagine a college football game, and I'm not even talking about cheer and dance. Imagine college football without marching bands. right? It would just not be college football. It would not be the same. It takes the students, it takes the marching band, it takes the mascot, it takes the cheerleaders. It takes so many pieces to create that very, very unique college football atmosphere that is such a like rare experience for only a certain time in life. Yes, you can always go back and experience it, but especially when you're a student and you're in it, I mean, it's those 4 years. And I think guys on the field play like that because most of the guys are not going to go pro, right? And so there's this sense of everyone's doing it for the love of not just the game but the school, this all thing that we all have in common. It's kind of like, to be cheesy, we're all in this together type vibe. So every piece comes together. I will never forget when Chip Kelly was still coaching at Oregon, my freshman year. I was at a radio appearance with him, and he was finishing up a show. And it was my freshman year. Had only cheered a couple games at this point, and he just came up to me behind and tapped me on the shoulder and just put his hand down and said, "Hey, I just wanted to thank you for all you do for us." Like it was the nicest thing. It was a pretty short thing. He was just like, "We're so grateful. Thank you guys for all you do." And to me, that is one of the things that has stuck with me forever. It's one of the most important compliments that I've ever received, even though it's so simple, because he took the time to come out over to us. We didn't say hi, to thank us for what we do. This is a college football coach who that year took his team to the national championship. And for him to take the time out to just come over and thank the cheerleaders for what we've done for the football team, that meant everything to me, and honestly drove me for through my passion those next few years at Oregon. So that validation was pretty cool.
Exactly. And that tells you that the coach and the players for the sports teams feed off of your energy that you
Absolutely.
bring onto the dance floor, into the
Yeah.
football field, into the basketball courts, because Oregon, even in the down years, they feed off your energy. And you
Absolutely. They feed off the student section energy, band energy, mascot energy, cheer and dance energy. It's all a collaborative effort that the players need to succeed.
Exactly. And you know what? You mentioned your run to the BCS games. Like, why don't you reflect on the time when you get some enjoyment out of the whole entire run to the BCS town games minus the loss, which is, of course, as they now call it, the college football championship. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I think it's cool to be a part of an era that doesn't exist anymore. When I first went to college at Oregon, it was still the Pac 10. And then when I left college, it was the Pac 12. So I've been a part of some really interesting moments in history. I think just being at Oregon and cheering at their most prolific time in football history was unbelievable. We were a consistently top 5 ranked team my first 3 years. We were a consistent top 3 ranked team every single season. And that is so rare. You might get that a lot at Alabama and Ohio State, but for other schools, it can be very, very rare, especially because lots of coaches don't say as long as Nick Saban has, right? And it was just a wonderful experience. And every time, somebody asks me where I went to school and when I graduated, they just like people just light up because they just want to know the experiences of Oregon football during that time, because it was just a very magical, very, very magical time. I would do anything to get those 4 years back on repeat again. But I think it was just everything together, so many experiences all in that small period of time, not just the wins, but the people you got to meet, the experiences with students. Autzen Stadium, I truly believe, is the best stadium in college football. It's so loud. It is so incredibly unique. You walk through the forest to get there. It's a college football town. It's not like some of these other schools in bigger, areas. And it is something that, again, is so special and a huge, like, important memory and time that like really shaped me as a human being. So I wouldn't say there's like necessarily one memory that sticks out. I think getting to cheer in the national championship my freshman year, and then the Rose Bowl. I grew up going to the Rose Bowl, so that was really, really magical for me because I grew up cheering for we grew up with UCLA season tickets. And so getting to cheer in the Rose Bowl, the stadium that I'd always grown up going to was amazing. And then, yeah, I think all of the experiences together made it one incredible time in my life for sure.
Yeah, exactly. But being a California-born woman that you are right now, and well, and having to travel to Oregon for your 4 years of school, I mean, like, how tough was it having to go to like a different state to pursue your dreams in sports casting and as a
Yeah.
dancer?
I think it was tough, but I needed to leave. A lot of I think a lot of high schoolers experience this bubble if they've gone to school in the same place, lived in the same place their entire life. You get kind of stuck in a bubble, right? Doesn't matter what state you're in. And I think it's so important to leave home for college, whether that's, a couple hours away or across the country. And for me, it was like getting out to experience something completely different than what I had grown up around. And it was, not too far away. So it's my parents could get up there easily enough. Yeah, I mean, now I think there is a direct flight, but at the time you had to make a quick stop. But it was such a wonderful place that didn't seem too far away. I would do the drive every once in a while. And I think it was about a 14 and 15-hour drive, but it would honestly go by so fast because it was so beautiful. It's just Oregon is such a magical state, and it always made me feel comforted that almost my entire graduating class was from California, different parts of California because it's a really big state. Um,
Yeah, because Oregon and California are close to each other.
yeah. And it's funny though, because it's like they are close to each other, but not like other states on the East Coast, right? Like it's still so far. Like I feel like you could just travel all the way across California in the same time you could hit like 7 states on the East Coast. But yeah, so it is like the neighboring state. It makes sense. And a lot of kids were not getting into the UC and California state school systems. So it was a really wonderful place for us all to go, but just such a unique experience. And I think um really important for me to get out of state. And everybody has their own experiences, but if you can leave home, I highly recommend it. It gives you a time to just learn to be independent and spread your wings and see if you can fly.
Exactly. That's a very interesting point. I mean, sometimes you have to explore other avenues in order to like achieve your dream of being involved in the sports industry. And you
Right.
found your lane to get in there. And after you're done with your 4 years, you worked with several different team publications. And why don't you let the viewers, for those that don't know the television publication you worked at, and what are some enjoyments you get out of it?
Yeah, so I worked in the local news industry for a few years after I finished cheering for the Chargers. I started my career at NBC in Palm Springs. Started covering high school football and then just built my way up from there. Made a couple moves. Um, Ended up at my last spot in at CBS up in Washington State and loved it. I really enjoyed getting all of the different experiences from working in different regions. But when I was in between jobs and I thought I was about to take another gig, I moved home with my parents for like what I thought was just going to be a month. And I started to see what was happening in the digital world. And I felt like my experience as a sports anchor, was so incredible. I learned so many things. I loved living out my TV dream, but I felt like I wasn't connecting with the audience of today. It felt like the broadcast industry was so behind um where Gen Z was headed, right? And even just millennials. Like I'm a millennial and none of my friends would really watch my shows, right? Like they might go check out a highlight later on Twitter or something like that. And it's an interesting industry. I wouldn't say it's dying, but it's just changed so much. And I saw that I needed to make this leap if I wanted to stick around and survive the new digital revolution. So I think for me, of course, I miss like being in a studio or being out in the field for a live shot, but the industry had just changed so much and it was not keeping up with where sports fans are hungry for their media. And yeah, so I of course there are aspects that I miss, but I think we're starting to merge the two. So I love using my expertise, my experience from my time working in television and now putting it out into the digital space. But my favorite part now about what I do is that I get to interact with my audience directly instead of talking at a camera and a teleprompter and then, someone receiving it on the other side of the television and not knowing how a viewer feels until they send me an email about the dress I'm wearing or the lipstick I'm wearing or this guy's name I pronounced wrong, all those kinds of funny critiques. Now it's a much more rewarding experience for me. I think it's still such a new space, but getting to use my experience as a journalist and push it into this new age of media is pretty cool because I think there's no limits to what we can do.
Exactly, because with all those Twitch live streamings and FanDuel streamings, you get to show the fans how you react to all the moments that's been going on. It's like your own personal NFL red zone, but in a very
exactly
smaller domain. I mean,
right.
although I see you keep a Pittsburgh Steelers jersey, I don't know why you keep a Pittsburgh Steelers. You're a Charger fan. What are you doing?
I've got a lot of different jerseys back here. So I'm working on rearranging some stuff. It's kind of a total mess back here, but viewers and members of our community will send in jerseys and I can change them out, and people gift, certain subs or things, and I'll change out the jerseys so people can view different jerseys at different times during the streams.
Exactly. And when you look after the legacy that you left, okay, let's get a little bit about like the present time of the Oregon Ducks sporting landscape. When you look back, like when you see the way that it's grown for your time, they're like, what has impressed you
about Oregon football in general, or Oregon as a school, or what do you mean?
What I mean is like, how impressed were you about the way that Oregon sports have evolved from your time there?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're a much more national brand now. Yes, everybody knew that it was affiliated with Nike and Tracktown USA. And now it is truly a national brand. It is crazy. In Eugene now, there are, there's a Whole Foods there versus we used to just only have local markets. It was very small town. I think there might even be a Lululemon there now. Like, it attracted so many other markets of not just students but media, and I think more people started to take them seriously, not just as a small town school, even though they've always been a Power 5 conference school. It's just in so many different ways Oregon has branded themselves as something truly unique. And yes, on the surface, it looks like it's just uniforms, but they're so innovative. They're always at the front. They're always leading the charge on facilities, uniforms, student experiences, everything. And they've just completely changed the college football landscape. The first question anybody ever asks when they meet me and hear that cheered at Oregon, they go, how many uniforms did you have? What was your favorite? It's so cool that people know, okay, what is Oregon going to wear this week? And it also is just a part of the brand. Like, to be new, cutting edge, and yet still like mirrored with tradition. And I think Oregon has pushed that, where they continue the tradition, which is really difficult when they've been through so many different head coaches, but they have just stayed consistent and become a national loved brand. It's insane how many people actually know about the Oregon Ducks now, and kids from across the country want to apply there. That never used to be the case. It used to seem like all of the students were from Oregon, but everyone is attracted to that energy, right? Like that swag, that fire you see on social media. So of course that helps. And I think just being cutting edge and leaders in all things athletics, to me, Oregon is number one in the country when it comes to that. And it's pretty cool. I mean, the Oregon cheerleader uniforms are in the College Football Hall of Fame. So it is really, really neat to just be a part of something that I saw blossoming, and now the entire nation understands like what Oregon sports is all about.
Exactly. I mean, I gotta give credit where credit's due. Oregon sports has literally evolved a lot from when I started college sports in the mid 2000s up until
sure.
Sometimes when I turn to Fox, I see a lot of fans actually get invested into the whole entire energy that these Oregon athletes bring. And in one example, everything you just mentioned, we just saw the Oregon Ducks almost have a couple of Final Four appearances for the women's basketball, courtesy of Sabrina Ionescu, who built her career off of Oregon Ducks. I mean, you being an Oregon Ducks fan, seeing the way the women's basketball descended upon the whole entire atmosphere of college basketball in the women's side from I believe it was 2015 to 19, whatever. No, 2016 to 19 or whatever the case may be. Like,
Yeah, I think Sabrina's last season
it
the
was
was
2020.
the pandemic. So and yeah,
that year, let's be honest, Oregon probably would have been in the national championship.
absolutely they would have. That was such a bummer.
Shut that down. Now, I don't know. I mean, I know you're a football fan, but obviously you witnessed Serena School play in the first WNBA finals and unfortunately losing in her first WNBA finals. But with what sticking to the Oregon Ducks, I mean, I know you're a football fan, but if you follow the basketball team after you left, like, what are your overall thoughts about the legacy that Sabrina Ionescu left behind? Not just statistically, but from an engagement standpoint.
I think it was a legacy of building upon culture and a winnable, like a winning dynasty. When I was cheering at Oregon and we cheered every basketball game, and I cheered in the Sweet 16 and oh gosh, 2012, 2013. It was so different because we had transfers in and out. There was no consistency. Even on the basketball side, Dana Altman was a new head coach. We had a different, women's coach earlier. It was Paul Westhead, who obviously built his legacy with the Lakers. But I think Oregon really, really took advantage of this boom in women's sports where more people were starting to pay attention on social media. And yes, it is about the wins. And Oregon was such a well-coached team, and Sabrina is one of the greatest female athletes we've ever seen, but it all came from social media. You look at Paige Beckers.
They even had a win against the USA women's basketball team in the game one time. Mm-hmm. Flowers to that one.
Yeah, so I think you look at all of these female athletes in so many different sports, and of course now we look at NIL and it comes down to all these women getting amazing sponsorship opportunities. But I think social media truly formed women's sports because the talent's always been there. We've seen some fantastic female college basketball players over the years. I think back to the old days when USC was an incredible women's program. There are so many women that never got the credit they deserved, and it was so awesome to see Sabrina pop off because of where social media was in its new height, and more people were learning about her. More mainstream sports fans were learning about her and seeing, oh my gosh, this woman is an incredible athlete. Oh my gosh, Kobe Bryant, is speaking her praises. So it's I think honestly, the growth in women's sports and women's basketball specifically at Oregon all came from social media. It came from the swag, the uniforms paired with incredible talent. It just was so cool to see the arena, Matt Knight Arena, which is pretty new like that. I cheered the last season at Mac Court, which was, the pit, aka the pit that was there forever. And so when they opened Matt Knight Arena, I was actually part of the opening ceremonies. It's been amazing to see the growth and just more students want to actually come to games. Because I'll be honest, they were pretty empty. The seats were pretty empty while I was cheering at Oregon for basketball. But once the men's and women's programs started to really build and take off, it was so awesome to see so many students. In the pit crew is where this is the student section, but just all of that support, especially for women. And I think Oregon's women's basketball really helped lead the charge for a lot of future female athletes across every sport in college.
Exactly. You got to give respect to women's basketball. They the reason why Oregon basketball was worth watching during that.
Absolutely. I have a passion for women's basketball. I used to, when I used to write for SB Nation, I worked up in Washington and I covered Seattle. I loved covering WNBA. I and also covering women's college ball, so covered a lot of Gonzaga, and Washington State, Washington, all the Pacific Northwest schools. But it was so cool to see, I think, just the growth in women's basketball and women's sports in general from when I used to cover it and to where we are now. And more people getting excited about the WNBA finals, more people getting excited about the women's final four. And there's, again, that all comes down to social media. That's why people are excited about it. Like, it's, you look at, everyone's excited to see what Kim Mulkey is going to wear on the court today, and a lot of male like sports fans might not have known who she was, and that she's one of the best, women's college basketball coaches of all time, maybe college basketball in general. And it's the funny things on social media that draw people initially in and then build the fan base.
Exactly, and exactly. Recently, like earlier this year, you just saw LSU win a national championship. Takes like Angel Reese, and then
Mm-hmm.
and then Fluja Johnson is not only a basketball player, but she's also a rapper.
Right.
Perfect timing.
Yeah,
So
and it's really cool. I think we look at these women and see that there's so much more than their sport. There's so much more to them. And again, I've said it many times, but most college athletes don't go pro. So you have to find your identity outside of your sport to be successful in life. Yes, use all the things you learned as an athlete initially in college, use those to your advantage, use those life skills, but you have to find another passion. You have to find a way to launch yourself into something new, because it doesn't last forever. And I see some of these women who are on top and are going to have to eventually, find their new place in life. And I think it's really, really cool that there are just so many opportunities now for women to get their platforms out there, so that they're a little bit more set up for success when they graduate.
yeah, and I can't wait to see what the women's basketball team this year, along with the men's, do. Both
Definitely.
only played 2 games, and of course they've won the first 2 games. So just keep that in mind. You
It's
never know.
early.
It's early, but you might see them in the NCAA tournament. So yeah,
The thing is, something I love about college basketball is anything can happen, right? We see those Cinderella stories happen year after year in the tournament. I was at the, oh my gosh, was it Florida Atlantic, Michigan State? I was at that game, that Sweet 16 game this
early
year
this year.
in New York. Yeah, this year. It was such an incredible win. It was so much fun, and I always love rooting for the underdog. I think that's what makes college sports so special too, and the format of the tournament. It's win or go home. We've seen so much drama. Some of the best drama, I think, truly in sports all comes during March Madness. And I was born during March Madness, so we grew up UCLA basketball fans. I was a huge fan of John Wooden. We've got a lot of John Wooden memorabilia at my parents' house. Grew up with tickets to UCLA games, and yeah, I think that was another like formative experience for me, just as a college sports fan, as a kid, because it was something that was so magical and you can only experience in that time of your life, and you feel that from the athletes. And um, college sports in general is just pretty darn magical.
UCLA had its moments, positive and negative.
Yep. Yep.
Remember the games they had against Gonzaga
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
and in
And yep,
2021? Yeah,
and
you remember those games.
we're still waiting for Gonzaga to win a national championship, man. And that is that's a tough one to watch, but they're so passionate. It's not about money. They're playing for passion. They're playing for love of the game. And I can't wait to see who makes a run at it this year, especially with the Pac-12 being its last year. And the Pac-12 has
Yeah, I was getting ready.
usually been pretty successful in college basketball, and this is the last dance.
Yeah, you know what? I was getting ready to ask you this at some point in the conversation. I'm glad you brought that up because I was gonna ask you, like, with Oregon moving out of the Pac-12, what went through your mind when you found that out, and that you also found out that the Pac-12 in college football is about to die out.
I knew it was going to happen the minute USC and UCLA jumped ship, and then Colorado made their way back to the Big 12. I knew Oregon and Washington were going to like take care of themselves. And that's the thing. So many people want to cry and complain about the Pac-12 disbanding, but these schools had to fend for themselves. They were dying because of old Pac-12 commissioner poor leadership, and it's one of those things where you kind of just had to take care of yourself. And I understand why every school left. Like, so yes, sure, it was an end of an era and a little sad, but I love that we're moving into the Big Ten with 3 other schools we've been playing for like 100 years. The same thing goes for, Arizona and ASU going together, Utah now being back with BYU in the Holy Bowl. Like, there are a lot of rivalries that are being reignited. I truly do hope Oregon State and Washington State find a home, because it's not fair that they're being left out. And I do think somehow, some way, a version of the Pac-12 will come together at some point. It's just the commissioner and leadership just completely screwed up on media. Initially, they should have never started an original Pac-12 network without a parent network. They should have, they got so many offers and wanted to do something completely on their own, and didn't have the credibility to do so. The fact that so many people couldn't figure out how to watch certain Pac-12 games showed that. But some of this cocky, like, elitist mentality is what did that. And I think we will see some version of like a West Coast sort of pack conference come together years and years down the line. I think we'll see something, just because there's no way that Cal and Stanford are going to be only doing cross country trips for their entirety as a university. So I do think we will see some sort of realignment again years down the line. So, nobody freak out, but I think we will, whether it might be like maybe we have 2 mega conferences and we have like West Coast divisions, East Coast divisions, Midwest divisions, something like that. Like, I think there will be a gigantic realignment that kind of resets college sports at its core, because, it's not too bad for football. They play 1 game a week, seasons, not too long, but it's hardest for the student athletes who play multiple games a week and have to travel nonstop, and not just, for them as athletes performing on the court or on the field, but as students as well. So I think we will see some giant realignment. I was not shocked at all. I wanted it. Again, the minute UCLA and USC left and Colorado jumped ship, I wanted Oregon to find a home so they didn't get left behind in the dust, because the Pac-12 was just a sinking ship and they had to save themselves.
Exactly. I mean, at the very least, like you just said it yourself. At the very least, Oregon doesn't have to worry about finding a home. And with the new changes, they get to compete with so many different college teams. I mean, not that they don't do it at the beginning of the seasons, but like they're gonna get to compete with them like on a year in, year out basis.
Yep, exactly.
And while we're on the subject of talking about Oregon, let's just this year. Yeah, Oregon Ducks, they're 91 second in the Pac-12. They're currently ranked number 6 in the country. Still a chance at making it into the top 4. They're at least positioned for New Year's 6, but they still got a chance to get into the top 4 in the college football playoffs.
Yeah.
But how confident are you that they can at least reach the semifinals of the college football playoffs with the remaining games, Arizona State and Oregon State?
Well, I feel pretty good against Arizona State. Oregon State, I'm absolutely nervous about. They are a really good team. I believe they're sitting at number 12 in the country right now.
They're 12th in the country.
Yeah. It's a great team. They're a really, really good team. But I think watching Florida State get a scare from Miami this week just proves that they don't have as strong of a schedule. So I believe if Florida State struggles a little bit, they might bounce out. Washington is a phenomenal football team. Michael Penix Jr. absolutely is my pick for Heisman winner this year. But if Oregon can get it done against Oregon State, that would be huge. That game is at Autzen. If they can get it done against Oregon State and beat Washington in the Pac-12 championship, which is certainly possible, because the UW Oregon game came down, to the final seconds. That was anybody's ball game the entire night. But yeah, so if they can beat Washington in the Pac-12 championship, I think absolutely Oregon gets in. So they've got a really good shot with that path, but they have to first get it done against Oregon State. But I do believe we'll see Washington, Oregon uh, in the conference championship. I think it would be pretty hard to make an argument why a team such as Oregon or Washington, who's beat some good teams and provided some of the most amazing football entertainment this year. You've got both quarterbacks are absolute Heisman candidates. I think it would be crazy to not include one of them in the college football playoffs for sure. And remember, Ohio State and Michigan have to play each other, so a loss is going to come for one of those teams.
Yeah, I'm looking. Yeah, I'm looking at I've got to look at Oregon right now. I mean, so far, one of your worst losses so far this year is obviously the only loss you had. It was on the road against Washington, and yeah, I remember seeing a reaction video from you from that loss. You did not really enjoy that one bit.
Well, I mean, it was a really good game. I mean, it was a great game. It could have gone either way. That's the thing. It didn't feel like last year playing Utah, or in times past where they weren't in control and completely got screwed. But this year it was really anybody's ball game, and it just came down to the end. It was those final minutes, and that's why I think like I'm pretty confident that we're gonna have a really really good Pac-12 championship.
Exactly, and obviously you have to. I mean, you guys, but on top of the one loss you had so far against Washington, which you expect to be facing for the Pac-12 championship, you had some pretty good wins as well. Look, just recently you took out USC. You smoked Deion Sanders, Colorado. You heard me say Deion Sanders, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think honestly a big win was against Utah, who Washington struggled a bit against them. So I think the Pac-12 in its entirety is much stronger than the country realized. Even Arizona, now nationally ranked. Oregon State is getting a lot of attention and about to break into the top 10 if they keep playing this well. So I think it's pretty cool to see that so many schools in the conference in its final year are putting up a fight and being competitive. And I think that this year Pac-12 football can play with the best of them, bring it on.
Exactly. And all that would not have been possible if it had not been for Nix and Irvin. What do you think that these players bring to the offensive system that was decided upon the Orchid Ducks 2023?
Well, with Bo Nix specifically, I think maturity is a huge factor and a huge advantage, right? Like he's been in college football for a while. He's a transfer. He's working with a young coach, but who has experience also coaching in the SEC, and Bo came from the SEC. I think maturity there, just as an older quarterback, is what you need in that locker room, especially for having a young coach. Dan Lanning is incredible, but the biggest struggle I believe that Oregon has faced over the last 10 years is inconsistency at the head coaching position. Mario Cristobal, the last coach, that seemed to be the most consistent at the time, but like they haven't had a same head coach for 4 years in a row since Chip Kelly. Like it's been a long time. And I think the players suffered because of that. Bucky Irving is just an incredible athlete. He deserves national respect. He's so elite, and I'm so excited to see what he's able to put together for the rest of the year. I think, even Troy Franklin, love watching him. There are so many pieces to this Oregon puzzle that just fit, that just work. And it's that fire that like I remember back in the, early in 2010, in 2010, 2011, those years that just made Oregon football so electric. And we're getting that back again. The start of when Marcus Mariota came in 2012. I'm getting deja vu from that with the combo of Bo Nix and Bucky Irving for sure.
Exactly. I mean, come on now. Bo Nix had about like 29 touchdowns, and he only had an interception. Like,
hey, Oregon's the highest scoring offense in the country. People can say what they want about the Pac-12, but Oregon right now is the number one scoring offense in the country.
3,135 passing offense. Yeah, the New York Giants better tank for this man.
Yeah, definitely. Put some respect. Put some respect on Oregon's name for sure.
Exactly. Now, now we transition a little bit. Now we transition to a little bit, as you mentioned that you got to cover the WNBA during your time as a reporter. I mean, like, what do you love for what you saw for the WNBA, and even fast forward to right now as far as the viewership and engagement for the sport?
Yeah, viewership again, like I've said, has skyrocketed because of social media. More people are learning who these athletes are. More people are following these female athletes from their collegiate careers to the pro level. That's why Sabrina Ionescu is so popular, because people saw her star at Oregon and they wanted more. They wanted some more. And some of the older athletes like didn't really get that, you know? Like I loved covering Sue Bird. She was an amazing athlete, but she never got that. She played in the league for a really long time, obviously, like just retired recently. And I always was saying, hey, got the same amount of championships as LeBron. And they just those athletes never got respect. And women now are getting so much more attention in their professional sports, and I think it's amazing. Not just in basketball, soccer, gymnastics, whatever it may be, tennis. I think it is really wonderful that more people are taking women's sports to the next level, because of social media, because they're learning who these people are. They're seeing the highlights. They see how electric the games can be. And all of the game day production teams for each WNBA team has really stepped it up. Like even when I was covering teams, gosh, in like 2017, 2018, 2019, things have just completely skyrocketed since then. They've really, really taken the fan experience into account. You see these stadiums filling up with more fans because people want to be there, because it's more than just seeing some people play on the court. It's a true experience, and they're developing these dedicated fan bases. But I would say the number one thing that helps the WNBA is seeing NBA players like on the court, right there, courtside, sitting right there, watching, supporting the women. Mm-hmm. Supporting the women, it is the number one thing, because people look at, some of these legendary basketball figures, and of course they're all men. But when somebody sees LeBron going in and sitting at a game, watching women
against the New York Liberty.
Yeah, exactly. People are going to take notice, and obviously the Liberty and Aces finals this year was fun to watch, but I'm just more excited for the years to come, because these women are starting to build dynasties more so. For a while, like when I was covering WNBA, it was the Minnesota Lynx, and they were not getting as near enough as much attention as they deserved. And that was coming off of lots of, UConn stars coming out with Gino Auriemma, really, leading those women to so many championships there at the collegiate level, and then going pro. But a lot of those former stars were not really getting the attention that they deserved. And I love seeing that now.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember speaking to LaTana Robinson earlier this year, because because in case you don't know, I covered the WNBA for 4 years. Well, it started virtual during the Wubble year in 2020, but
man, that's rough. Good for you.
But earlier this year, earlier this year, I got to cover the WNBA draft, and I got to cover games 3 and 4 at the finals in person, and everything else I covered was done through Zoom. If you don't believe, if you want to catch all my interviews, you can follow me on Rafiq_Louis BK. And those players, they're really mindful about the game that's right in front of them. They're not looking ahead. They're not thinking back. They looking at right in front of them, and they also impressed with the type of engagement that they're getting from the fans and the people watching from home. And
definitely, I absolutely agree.
She was impressed with the way that the growth and development of the media engagement that is descended upon the WNBA.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact having to see people wave the white flags, whenever wave white towels at the WNBA finals, that was just amazing.
Amazing. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful to see. So beautiful. And I love this passion for women's sports in general right now. Like America is really coming through from it. And again, it all starts with social media. It just starts with getting these athletes out there, showing people how fun women's sports can be. And people used to make fun of the WNBA all the time, but it came down to nobody watching, nobody understanding. And that's because, games might be on a random time at night and no one's going to go and look for that. But now that everything's available on your phone and more people can see these highlights from WNBA games, that's how you grow the fan base.
Exactly, because there was a time where when I was watching New York Liberty during the days of MSG, and they used to play games they used to televise their games both on the road and almost all the time. And so at one point in 2010s, they always like, why did they take delay on the Liberty games? Like seriously, they always
Right.
take delay in the games.
Yeah. Yeah. They and women's sports in general really, really struggled with that, with just not only like game times, which ones would be televised or not. It was just ridiculous. So I think they're getting respect now from the mainstream media, and that's where it all starts.
Yeah, and you know what? I know a few people that are part of the reason why the media is getting invested to the WNBA. And I can't wait for us to continue connecting from this point on in later episodes. So this way you will get a chance to meet them, Bridget.
Definitely.
Now, on to another topic. Well, obviously, you do some streams, not just on Twitch, but in partnership with FanDuel. Like, why don't you tell me about that whole process and the whole experience is like being able to contribute your media voice to FanDuel?
Yeah, I love working with FanDuel. They're amazing. I'm in the middle of a 1-year contract with them right now, and it's been such an incredible experience, especially because we're just starting to build something really exciting, and there's so much more to come. But they've really given me the freedom to use my voice, and they understand that yes, my background is in mainstream broadcast media, but I've found this niche on the internet where I'm just a crazy woman talking sports, using my yes professional expertise, but putting a spin on it, making it Bridget's, not just, being the professional talking head. Like, and they let me have that freedom. And it's just amazing. But I do have such a passion for sports betting and for daily fantasy. It's a really fun way to engage with my community, which is, again, live content is king right now on the internet. So if you can engage with the community, that back and forth, if you can do that, you are going to succeed in the world of media. But that's still missing from a lot of platforms. So I think that marriage between FanDuel, valuing my voice as a sports personality, and me loving sports betting so much, and getting to engage with my community with that, it's like the perfect marriage. So a lot of fun things to come, that's for sure. But I'm really, really appreciative for them giving me the freedom to explore, new things, try new things, figure out what kind of content is going to work, figure out what our audience wants. And it's cool to pioneer those things for sure. And sports betting is the future, man. So I'm really, really happy to be with a company like FanDuel.
Exactly. FanDuel is literally partnered with several different sports channels and brands throughout the entire world.
Absolutely. They're the number one sports book in the country.
Exactly. And then when you look at all the comments that fans say, look at a few comments that fans say, like like positives and negatives, like how do you continue building off of that? Do you
I think it comes down to being human. I get sick and tired of people saying, well, if you're going to be in social media, you're going to be um putting yourself out there, you have to ignore the haters. And I understand that's coming from a good place, but like, we're human, we're not perfect, we're going to feel stuff. So allow yourself to feel it. Allow yourself, if you're, a little hurt by someone's comment, obviously don't dwell on it, but take a second and be like, I'm going to use that to fuel my fire and prove to the world why I'm so amazing and I can succeed. And I am going to keep going despite all of the negativity and the people who doubt me. Because honestly, doubters and haters, that's what's gotten me where I am. And I know that it's going to continue to get me there. I'm just getting started. I haven't even broken the surface. I'm still such small beans. I can't wait to see where I go, because this space, I think the potential is limitless as long as you just go for it. And you definitely like take in all of the positive comments and the kind things people say, and use that to your advantage when you feel a little down because of, some jerk who says something mean because he's, never had attention from a woman, like, and that's the thing. It all comes from other people's insecurities. But I think it's so important to remember that, like, we're human. We're not going to be perfect. We're allowed to feel things. We can't just be like, oh, I'm going to be happy, perfect all the time. And that's why I'm a huge mental health advocate. I'm honest about that stuff. And that's what I love about being on the digital side of things now, instead of just on television, is I can say what I feel. I can be honest about my struggles with depression and anxiety. I can really delve into who Bridget is, and not just the story, not just the game, not just the script.
Exactly. And you're also, and again, as I mentioned earlier in the show, you got to do TikToks showing how you personally feel about the Chargers losing a late second field goal to Detroit Lions, which you can expect because the Lions have been stupid good this year.
Oh, they're phenomenal. Yeah. Their Lions are a really good team. Of course, I do play it up a little bit. I play up the drama a little bit, so for the content. But I think it's something that's so relatable, right? Those reactions are so relatable for so many fans, not just the Chargers fan base. But it's fun because it just feels real. It's not scripted. It's how most sports fans are all feeling at the time. Everyone's been through it. It's like a shared experience. And that's what people want to see on the internet.
I feel like I'm watching a sitcom with all those videos.
Right? Love that.
Yeah, with all those videos, whether you're dancing or rapping or singing, I feel like you done a lot of engagement.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. It's definitely one of those things where you have to just kind of go for it and not care about what other people think, and just trust that it'll all work out and your message will serve somebody. If I can just change one person's life, then I've succeeded.
Yeah, you can. And switching gears real quick, as I saw that not too long ago, you got to attend TwitchCon and even got to dance while wearing a mascot. I mean, like you meant like, what would you describe that experience of being able
Yeah.
to run around with a mascot at a TwitchCon?
Yeah, TwitchCon is amazing. I've this is my second time going to TwitchCon. I was last year in San Diego. This year was in Vegas. It's awesome to be able to meet so many people who are in a similar industry. Lots of content creators from all different sectors, and everyone has their own experiences. You're always learning from people. Twitch is such a supportive platform, and I work a lot closely with them. And am blessed to work with Amazon as well. Like I did Amazon's show from Super Bowl this year, and it's been fun to really like see how much Twitch values its creators, and they really do care more, I would say, than most social media platforms. They truly have invested the time and the energy to help people grow on their platform, to help for the greater good of content. And of course, it was really fun to be able to bring my sloth costume and entertain the masses. It was always really cool to meet people who already follow me on TikTok, and hear their experiences and hear how I've affected them. Like I never would have imagined that just me dancing in a sloth costume and red boots could make somebody smile so much. And that's why I continue to do it, because a lot of people don't understand. But it started as a joke, and then it turned into a movement, and it's something that I'll continue to do as it's part of my platform. And I love just making people smile. Number one, that's the number one thing. Like, again, I want to change lives. I want to make people smile and just put some good out into the world through sports, through dance, through whatever it is.
Exactly. That's how you have to do it, because if the fans are not being engaged at work, then how you expect to succeed?
Right. Exactly.
And and a few things I gotta get into real quick. Like, what advice you have for people that are trying to like reach that elusive engagement from being a sports, being a professional and a dancer?
I think engagement all comes down to being yourself. You can't rely on the analytics that people push so hard on social media. You have to rely on your own like, if you love your content, if you love what you're doing, then you are succeeding. If you love it, and you are starting to find a passion and find a fire, who cares if you get a few likes? something, people will read that, people will feel that energy from you, and eventually you will pop off. Everybody's time is different. I've seen some creators who, go viral immediately and have all this success, especially financially. And that's definitely like where I struggle. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, most content creators, it's so up and down with our income, and you have to be aware and okay with that. And you also just have to be okay with being happy for other people, because someone's success does not mean that that's your failure. It's just not your time yet. And so if you can be okay with that and understand and be your own biggest cheerleader, you will succeed in whatever you do.
Exactly. Well, speaking now it transitions a little bit to your Chargers, and obviously, well, as you already discussed last week, they're coming off a loss to the Detroit Lions, and the rest of the schedule, they have a chance to make the playoffs, but they have some tough games and some not so tough games coming up. First, you have to go to Lambeau Field to play the Green Bay Packers.
You know what? It's not the Packers that we're used to in the past. So I think that game will be pretty easy.
Yeah, as you tip it off, this win-loss predictions for the Los Angeles Chargers.
Oh gosh.
Packers on the road.
Yeah. Oh, on the road, win. We're gonna be in a bounce back situation. Listen, they played really well against the Detroit Lions. We're gonna be fine. It came down to a last minute field goal, like every other game did this weekend. So we will be okay against the Packers.
Luckily for the Chargers, the worst margin of defeat that they've had all year was 14 on the road against the Kansas City Chiefs. But what to expect? They're defending champions.
Right.
Every other loss they've had was on a field goal. And one of my friends that hosts a show with me just recently, we talked about this. You guys have to work on the secondary.
Absolutely. And a lot of that does come down to the fact that we have a defensive head coach, and why is he not getting it together? So I'm not the happiest with our coaching right now. We have too good of a roster. We have too good of a defense to not be succeeding. I mean, the combo of Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa is just dynamite. And it's so sad that they're not being able to like live out their full potential. And that comes down to so much inconsistency as well on the coaching staff. There's been so much turnover. Yes, we've had the same GM for a while, but there's been too much turnover on the coaching staff to ever really find a rhythm.
Exactly. And it's good. Exactly. I mean, you had no problem holding the Jets to 6 points, but Zach Wilson's trash. So what you expect?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So, I think our defense will eventually find its footing, but we do need a new coaching staff. And, when they hired Brandon Staley, defense was the goal, but it's just not worked out. And, we've seen so many defensive head coaches that actually find more success as offensive head coaches, once they get into it. And I think that's just something to keep in mind, because I was so excited to have a defensive head coach. It was the first time, I believe, since Marty Schottenheimer that we snagged one of those guys. And so it's obviously not worked out. It's not been great. And I want all the blame to stop going to the players, because we do have some phenomenal athletes. We have too good of a roster to be struggling this much.
Exactly. And although exactly, we'll get more into conversation about the players and engagement for the Chargers later. But continuing on with your picks, week 12, you got the Baltimore Ravens at home.
At home, ooh, and I believe that's a Sunday night football game. That is going to be a little tough. Baltimore is a really good team. I think that's going to come down again, maybe to a field goal. I see like a 3-point spread there. I think it'll be a 3-point ball game. And I honestly just think it comes down to whoever has the ball last, whoever manages the clock better. So I'm going to give my Chargers the benefit of the doubt and hope that they pull it out.
Okay, that's fair. Now, week 13 on the road against the New England Patriots, you got to win that one, please.
Oh, absolutely. We'll be fine against the Patriots. They'll eventually figure their defense out, but for now, absolutely, we'll be fine.
And home against the Denver Broncos. They just scored a crazy last second win.
Yep. And I do think the Broncos are good. I think the Broncos are, the thing is, the AFC is too competitive right now. It's up for grabs for any team. I think we're going to see a lot of ups and downs for many AFC teams right now. Look at the Bengals were struggling so much at the beginning of the season. Now Joe Burrow has found his footing a little bit better. I mean, CJ Stroud is leading the Texans to a wonderful season. The Jags, I don't even know what to think right now because they're a lot better than many people expected. But then Trevor Lawrence struggled last week, and obviously against the oh my gosh, Niners, but I do think the AFC is completely up for grabs. I'm gonna give my Bolts again the benefit of the doubt here because Denver defense has been a little up and down. So I gotta go with my Bolts here on this one.
Okay.
I think Justin Herbert's the better quarterback. I will be honest right now. So
okay, week 15, you got to go to Vegas against the Raiders. Who you got winning that game or a loss?
Thursday Night Football, I think we'll be fine. Aiden O'Connell is not it, and we will be fine. We can get the W.
I wouldn't count on that. They played good defense against my Giants and the Jets.
They did. No, they absolutely did. But I think it. I don't think
they're not reaching 13 wins, Trinia Barbie. If you're listening to this, but they will. But they're decent.
They're decent, absolutely. But I got to give my Chargers I'm a Chargers fan, so I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. I think this could come down to anybody's ball game, and it honestly depends on what our coaching situation is at that time. But if Justin Herbert's ready to go, he'll play lights out.
Yeah, and home against the Buffalo Bills.
I know people are down on the Bills right now, but I am still a little bit nervous about this one. Josh Allen does turn the ball over a lot, but they're still the Bills. They can come out with some amazing wins. I don't know. I'd take the Bills on that one.
I mean, come on. After what you saw against the Denver Broncos,
I don't go off of one game. I can't go off of one game.
Josh Allen's turnover proven to be turnover prone, like Zach Wilson. Look, you saw what happened on Monday Night Football to begin the season against the New York Jets. That's turnover, and they were a victim of a punt return for a touchdown. Yeah, you just have, the secondary just need to get better. If the secondary doesn't do anything, Justin Herbert just has to put up points. That's all you have to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping they'll be fine. I think they'll be okay, but I'm obviously trying to just be irrational here. I do have to go, and I got to leave at 5:10. I've got an appointment at 5:15. So, are we cool? Almost wrapping up.
Yeah, we're cool. Yeah, okay. We're cool. I mean, we're just going through the picks. We only have 2 more picks to go anyway.
Okay.
Week 17 on the road against the Denver Broncos again.
I think on the road against the Broncos, Mile High is really hard to play at during that time of years. I think home field advantage comes in for the Broncos on that one.
Okay. Now, week 18 and home against the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City will likely have a playoff spot and see clinch at that point. So
I think it just depends on if Patrick Mahomes is playing or not. I mean, we saw in the past where Chad Henne came in because Patrick Mahomes wasn't playing. So I think it just comes down to if they're playing or not. I give the Chiefs that one if Mahomes is playing.
Okay, so that will put that will put the Chargers at about 9 and 8.
At this point in the season, it's that's a win to me just because we've had some horrible, tough losses, man.
Yeah, we really did. And just a quick snippet of some NBA talk before I let you go. Then that's the last topic, I promise. I mean,
okay.
What are your overall thoughts?
Yeah, I do gotta get out of here. So yeah, can we so go ahead, last question.
What are your thoughts on which team do you think is winning the NBA finals this year?
Well, you know what? I gotta be biased and I gotta say my Lakers. I think the Heat will actually come back with a really good season. It was fun to watch them last year. I don't know if we'll see a deep repeat from Denver. I'm kind of hoping we see somebody else, but I'm excited for the in-season tournament, I will say.
And now up with this episode, Nothing But That Sports Talk. Thank you so much, Bridget Case, for coming on the show. I hope we get to do this again sometime to get more into the NBA season. For Bridget Case, Rafiq Luzon, we'll see you next time.
Thank you.